Electric car sales in Australia for the month of October. Let's have a look at the best-selling EVs and see which ones are leading the market. Which ones I'm going to give you my 2 cents on which ones I think should be leading the market and not. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. BYD has taken over Tesla's lead in EV sales in Australia in the month of October. Not for the year, but for October they certainly have. And look at these sales. Well, you've got to be pretty happy if you're BYD. XPeng sales haven't been reported, but I believe XPeng so far have sold about 1,600 plus G6s since its launch 1 year ago. So that's not in this total here. The best-selling EV in Australia was surprisingly the BYD C-Line 7. Why is it surprising? To be honest, reviews haven't been all that glowing. And I'm not talking about my own personal reviews here. I'm talking about journalists. Its efficiency is obviously well below rivals. It does appear to be good value, but range, efficiency, and charging speed, which to me are the holy grail, the Trinity. They're the holy Trinity. Sorry to those of you who believe in the Trinity. To me, range, efficiency, charging speed, they're the three things I think are really important. And the C-Line is pretty far below some of its rivals in those key metrics. But people do see it as being good value. So it's sold very, very well here in Australia. 1,341 sales in first place. Second was a Tesla Model Y with 735 sales. By the way, Tesla did just reveal the super long range Model Y rear-wheel drive in China, which I believe will come to Australia as well. That's going to have about 660 kilometers of WLTP range, 820 kilometers of CLTC range. Model Y second, 735. The Geely EX5 was third with 343, which is fantastic value for money car. You can really see why Geely have sold that many. Kia's EV5 was in fourth place with 340 sales. To me, Kia is selling more on the fact that it's the brand Kia. And I think Kia has pretty strong brand value in Australia and in the United States. It is basically the similar platform to the BYD C-Line. Has, to me, similar detriments to the C-Line, which are range, charging speed, and efficiency are all well below rivals, such as the Zeekr 7X or the XPeng G6. But people see it as a traditional-looking SUV. They like the look of it, they like the Kia brand, and they're selling pretty well. Next was the BYD Atto 3 with 318 sales, followed by the BYD Dolphin, 311, the MG S5, 282, BYD Seal, 259, Kia's EV3, 241, the Volkswagen ID4, 197, pretty good sales for Volkswagen with the ID4, Tesla Model 381, and the Zeekr 7X, 178. But I believe that Zeekr did pre-sell, I believe, nearly 3,000 EVs. So those numbers will come up massively, probably in the month of November. FCAI CEO Tony Weber said, the October results confirm that Australians are increasingly choosing hybrid and plug-in hybrid models as a practical path towards lower emissions. He went on to crap on about hybrids and plug-in hybrids, blah, 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 boosting them for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, September was a great month for EV sales in Australia. October, not such a great month. Not sure why. But there are some great models of EVs that are arriving on the Australian car market. There's the new XPeng G6 coming by the end of this year, the XPeng G9, the Zeekr 7X, like I said, that's on sale now. Zeekr also bringing in some other models. And then you've got some other cars from, say, Leap Motor, their new great value mid-sized electric SUV. That's around $40,000. There's other models of cars that I can't talk about on the channel because I'm not meant to say anything, signed NDAs. But there's some really good cars coming as well. But to be honest, there's massive amount of choice right now on the market, massive. And BYD's marketing, getting into the market early is really paying dividends for them because I think there's better choices on the market. In fact, there are better choices. If you test drive the different choices and you really think about the specs and you kind of don't come at it from an emotional position, but more of a logical position in terms of what's the best way to spend my hard-earned money, then I think some of the other options on the market are better than some of these really top-selling BYDs. But, you know, the brand value of BYD is quite strong right now. and the value perception from customers clearly is quite high. So, sales of 84,000 EVs in 2025 so far in Australia. We're probably going to hit maybe 120,000 for the year in total. Resync Solar is the company that I used. I'll put a link to them in the description below. Now, here's a comment in response to this article, which was on The Driven. Will Aussies ever get it? I'm not convinced Aussies used to be early adopters of new technology. Will Aussies ever get it? I'm not convinced. Aussies used to be early adopters of new tech, but they just seem to love their fume-spewing internal combustion vehicles. Clearly, most Aussies don't really value the health of themselves or their kids. And I think they lack a lot of education, a lot of Australians as well. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of fear around EVs that's been spread in Australia. It's probably helped to slow down the adoption of EVs here. Now, comment response to this, I think is a good response. Most Aussies don't understand that we have entered a new era because the established powers are in a fighting withdrawal phase, continuing to trade on public ignorance for the advertising dollars they need for mutual survival. And then there's big oil. So there's a lot of marketing and advertising on Facebook in particular that's completely false. And what I recently posted on my own Facebook page was a post saying, guys, don't read something on Facebook and take it as true. Some of my friends have been doing this, sharing posts on Facebook that are just random memes and stuff where they think these are facts. Because somebody shared a post on Facebook, they think it's a fact. It's not. A very large percentage of this stuff on Facebook being shared is completely false. So be careful of that. Another person said Aussies need to spend less time on Facebook and more time actually educating themselves. And I completely agree with this. Being willfully ignorant has become a national pastime here, unfortunately. There is definitely a lot of willful ignorance, unfortunately, here in Australia. So this year, what are we looking at versus last year? Well, last year, EV sales were pretty good. We had a good year. It was a record year. This year, EV sales are up in total by 10% versus last year, which I think's not as much as I would have thought, but it's still an improvement. So at least we can look at it that way. Now, someone posted this comment. I want to clarify this. A bit disappointing sales numbers for the Zeekr 7X, was expecting around 400 or more. Overall, not a very strong month for EV sales. Australia is clearly lagging behind Europe and China. That is very true. I assume that dealers still prefer to sell internal combustion and hybrid vehicles as they make more money from selling them. That's true as well, particularly from servicing, and reinforce all the misinformation out there about EVs. Also getting really annoyed by the comments made by Tony Webber, who is certainly not an advocate for electric cars. He's in charge of basically the Australian automotive industry to a degree. Now, the comment, disappointing sales numbers for the Zeekr 7X, is a bit strange because basically Zeekr have got the orders. The orders are massive. They're just waiting on delivery of the cars. So in the month of November, their delivery numbers will be much higher. It's just a constrainment of shipping numbers and getting the cars off the shipping. You could probably blame the docking yards for that. They take a long time, and they have these pretty very, very strict rules on quarantine and all this kind of stuff. It makes it quite challenging. So in terms of the 7X numbers, someone said this: Volkswagen ID4 outsold the 7X. Given all the media hype, you'd have thought the Zeekr would have creamed the Volkswagen, but with inconsistent shipping, individual month sales do not show true interest. That's right. Volkswagen ID4 didn't outsell the 7X. Volkswagen just have lots of ID4 sitting in the dealerships, and Zeekr have delivered, I think, every car that they've sold, except there's a couple you can buy from dealers because people cancelled orders for very strange combinations. And so there's a couple currently in dealerships you can buy. Not many, though. Here's a comment. Here's a response. Tesla's numbers rise and fall monthly depending on number of ships arriving. Quarterly and annual numbers count a lot more than monthly numbers as there is too much variance. This is absolutely true for Tesla. Tesla's next sales, their sales for November, I'm sure will be much better than they were in the month of October. Dealers will always prefer ICE and hybrid, not because they make more from selling them, but because they require regular servicing, which EVs don't, and servicing is where they make money. Now, just to clarify this from EV_person, this comment has 21 likes, so people believe this comment. This isn't true. Actually, Volkswagen and some other brands have confirmed that dealers do make less selling EVs. This is a statistical fact. If you can Google this, you can Google this straight away if you want to. It's very clear Volkswagen pay dealers less money to sell EVs than they do internal combustion cars. That's the entire Volkswagen group, which makes up many brands. Anyway, I would expect that the sales staff would have been instructed to steer customers towards their hybrid offerings unless customers are dead set on EVs because of the servicing costs that people pay. Tony Weber is Toyota's puppet. Of course, he's going to spruik hybrids. That's why Tesla and Polestar left FCAI to start with. Now, someone else said this, I'll just end on this comment. So people are going for vastly more complex hybrids with an internal combustion engine, electric, battery, and CVT transmission. Doesn't really make sense to me.